Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Old Hunt. We are picking up where we left off here in Old Yarnum, where we are taking a little bit of a reprieve from being shot at by another hunter named Dira. And we are here in this little chapel, it looks like, where we are safe from his machine gun fire. Incidentally, I think I was going back and forth. I was watching back the previous episode in editing. I think I was going back and forth in pronunciations. Technically, if you look at the Japanese, the way that it's written phonetically, it should be Dura. And I used to, when I just played the English, see the DJ at the start of his name and pronounce it Jura. And, I mean, it seems to indicate that the J in Dura is meant to be sort of a European-style J where it sounds like a Y to people in the U.S. like me. So maybe that's what's going on. Probably that's what's going on. But if you want to call him Jura, you can. Apparently, like I said, I was listening back to my previous episode, and I was going back and forth all the time, and sometimes somewhere in the middle. I'm going to try to keep calling him Jura, but if Jura slips in, then oh well. Sorry. I figured I'd at least address that because it was bothering me when I was editing the episode. The other thing that was bothering me, we got 3/4 of that dialogue, and even though we sort of have enough to make the main point about it, we don't have the full thing. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about it here at the start of this episode, the most salient features of which, because we've already gotten the most salient features of that dialogue, we can talk about that part of it. I'm still going to try and get the full dialogue, but I'm going to do it probably much later on in the game. I don't know exactly how much later, but it won't be any time in the very near future. Because there's another way in which I think we can get the full dialogue, but I want to have a few more interactions with Dira before we get to that point. So, the salient point, the most salient thing, is if you look at the Japanese, there's a moment when, okay, so at the start of his dialogue, he says something to the effect of, I should think you still have dreams. And the Japanese there is yume o miru. And literally that's like see a dream, but that's just the regular way that the Japanese language phrases the idea of what we in English describe as having a dream. If you're saying, Kino no yoru yume o mita, that would be, I had a dream last night. Or, yeah, that's what it would be. So, totally normal Japanese phrasing there. So, when the English says, I should think you still have dreams, that part is, like, completely, the two languages are in sync up to that point. After that point, the Japanese, I think, gives away a little bit of the game earlier than the English does. Because the English says the next time you dream, give some thought, da-da-da-da-da-da, something about the hunt. But in the Japanese, we're getting the word asoko, right? Asoko de. And asoko is a fairly basic Japanese word. You learn it pretty early on if you're going through a Japanese language course. At least I did. And it's sort of contrasted with koko, which is here, soko, which is over there but in the vicinity, and asoko, which is like way over there. So he says, I should think you still have dreams. The next time you're there, right, would be a little bit more of a literal translation. So he's talking about the dream that we're having as a place, which means that Dira knows about the hunter's dream. And again, I think the English gets this point across as well, but I think the Japanese is a little bit sharper about it, and it's easier to see it earlier. So I wanted to highlight that. That's, I think, the most important point of his dialogue. Also, I remember talking about the tragedy of the hunt and how, like, these people that we meet in the streets of Yarnum, we have no choice but to put them down. I think there's a bit of theme work going on in the game here, because the next place you go, if you follow Gehrman's advice, you don't have to come here, but the next place you go if you follow Gehrman's advice, even if you're sort of stumbling your way around the world, I think you're likely to find yourself in Old Yarnum at some point, is a place where Dira says, I care about the fact that these beasts are just living among themselves and interacting and, like, having apparently been exposed, maybe not, to the tragedy of Old Yarnum. They're just living here now. And so leave us alone. Why are you even here? What's the point of a hunter coming here? Is sort of the vibe that we get from him. So we're being confronted with that idea of, okay, we know that there's a tragedy to the hunt, that these beasts used to be people. And Dira's down here sort of protecting them, because if there's no need to hunt them, why engage in that tragedy, right? Why go to the effort of putting down these beasts if they don't have to be put down, if they're of no harm to those above? The door leading up is sealed. I mean, we broke through it. I don't know how effectively it's sealed. Maybe it works better from the other direction. Seemed like it was just a piece of paper. I don't know how much that's a concession to gameplay or not. But take it that the door is sealed and it's not going to budge, and these beasts are indeed self-contained in this area. Well then, what is the problem with leaving these beasts alone? Are we perpetuating cruelty by coming here? And this ties back into the story of that red jeweled brooch. And I've used this item to illustrate a similar point in Translation Borne. But we know that this brooch has sentimental meaning to Viola and Gascoigne. It was a gift from a hunter to a woman named Viola. And we also know that it contains a rare droplet blood gem that can strengthen all sorts of weapons. So what do we value here? Do we value the sentimental thing? Do we value the information that we got from the young girl about this being tied to her family and all of that? Or do we care about the gem? Because as the description here sort of indicates, you can use this thing and gain the gem. So we're going to do it right now. We're going to select use right here from the menu, and we're going to agree that we want to use the red jeweled brooch, the pure red brooch, literally. And we smash it to pieces and take out the gem. And I think that's interesting, right? Because it's like, it's this thing that has a decorative purpose, an emotional purpose, and we can take it and we can use it for its utilitarian purpose, kind of appropriate. And that purpose is to put down beasts. So in a way, it's sort of emblematic of the story that we've had going on with Viola and Gascoigne the whole time, right? You have this emotional relationship that is sort of crushed by the need to put down the beasts, the way the hunt is sort of crowding out everything else and all the room for humanity you have. And I brought this up before. This is another reason why I like the official translation of "you hunted to prey slaughtered," right? It's going from English to English. But I love the way that the prey slaughtered message gives you the idea that, okay, you're a hunter, you've decided what your prey is going to be, and you're going to put it down. And that's part of what you're doing in this game. And it's sort of, I don't know about you, but it confronts me with the lack of regard that you have for the thing that is your prey. And you can sort of see that. I mean, we're jumping ahead a little bit in spoiler territory. Maybe you can't see it just yet. But you will be able to see it in the ways that other hunters define their prey. I was talking before, right? Dira defines us as his prey when we come in, when we ignore his warning. He gives us a lot of warning, right? Not only is there the seal on the entrance to Old Yharnam and the way that we have to break it, we have to read the notice and then we have to break it deliberately to go in. So it's not like we're just wandering in here unaware. We are deliberately transgressing in coming to Old Yharnam. Then he gives us a verbal warning. He says, if you don't turn back, the hunter will face the hunt. He's warning us that we'll become his prey. And only then, when we push forward, when we continue after warning to push forward, does he decide, okay, you're going to become my prey. And once we hit that moment, he becomes merciless towards us. So something about that identification of something as one's prey has this, I don't know, I want to say judgmental. It has this very strong quality of, like, it's dehumanizing. You identify something as your prey, it doesn't matter that these things used to be people, right? It doesn't matter that Gascoigne transforms in front of us from a person into a beast. We have to put him down. He's our prey. And I think it's intentionally supposed, the game, I think, is intentionally supposed to make you sort of ask that question about whether or not what we are doing is necessarily good or right, and what exactly the line is that we're walking between our humanity and our ability to empathize with the people around us, and our need to shut that down, and however regrettable the circumstances might be, take out the prey that is before us. And I think that's interesting. Let's see. We're talking about blood gems, so we might as well go ahead and pull up, I guess it would be in a different category now. Yeah, here we go. Let's see what this utilitarian focus has gained us. This is a blood gem, which can strengthen weapons and add various properties to the weapons. The droplet type is a special type that can adapt its shape to fit any weapon, all weapons. Arayuru. I mentioned that when I was talking about a note in a previous episode. It is which was born from the bright red brooch, right? So it's this blood gem. This very literal translation I'm giving here in the moment. Sorry. Strengthens regain. Regain is degain, is to pronounce it in the Japanese fashion, is the Japanese term for rallying. And that in and of itself is sort of an interesting choice there, because there's a little bit of a trade-off between the gameplay utilitarian value of telling players, oh, this is your regain ability, versus the sort of in-universe presentation of this is your rally ability. And it's sort of ironic to me that the Japanese is arguably a little bit clearer about, oh, this is a regain ability for regaining your life after the bar goes down. When I first played this game, it wasn't entirely clear to me what rally was, what the rally system was meant to indicate. And as much as I like the way that you can talk about, oh, I have the ability to rally and come back from a life and death struggle, right? It fits the fiction very well to say rally. But there's a little bit of a tension, I feel, in the clarity for the gameplay term, sort of the opposite of what I was talking about with the antidotes, right? Literally, the antidotes are like little white medicinal pills or tablets or whatever, whereas they translated them as antidotes, and I was saying, well, there's a benefit there, which is you get the gameplay usage first and foremost, and then if you read for more details, you'll find out, okay, there's the fact that they cure poison, and that's their main use. Whereas this is sort of the opposite, where if they had just called it regain, it would have been a little bit clearer, I think, to players what exactly was going on, what was getting strengthened with this blood gem. But at the same time, it would detract from that sense of like the in-universe function of this as a rally. Anyway, that's a little bit of a sidetrack on a sidetrack. Let's see. So regain, or rallying, is one of the most hunter-like of skills. So that's interesting. So one of the most hunter-like things about being a hunter is the ability to regain. And it symbolizes how a hunter is the person standing after a life or death struggle. Yeah. So being the last person standing is somehow indicative of what it is to be a hunter, right? So a hunter, we're talking about sort of the merciless nature of all this. A hunter goes into a situation, you confront these terrifying beasts, you take on their horrors, you get in these life and death struggles that the developers have talked about being as like one of the core ideas of this game, and you emerge out the other side of it. That's one of the defining traits of a hunter, is you go in there and you have the tools you need to survive. And I think that's tied to the reason why they're saying regain is part of it, because you're not afraid to go into that life and death struggle, and even if you get hurt in the process, you know you're going to rally back that vitality, that health. And I'm not sure what exactly is happening, like in the fiction of the universe, that makes it make sense why we regain our health, but I think it definitely works in terms of the metaphor of the life and death struggle that the battles in Bloodborne represent, the trading of blows, and that a hunter is the one who comes out on top, because they have the ability to sort of gain that vitality, hold on to that vitality. And it sort of also goes to that idea of the hunter's mark, right? Like, you have the ability to reawaken. I still am not clear on the exact implications, the metaphysical implications of this world based on reawakening. I think it's a little bit hazy, a little bit unclear, but something about the idea that you could decide that the situation you're in is undesirable and essentially reset it, awaken as if everything that had happened that got you in the situation you wanted to awaken from was a bad dream. It's sort of like you're determining your reality. And I think Bloodborne plays around with that a lot. A lot of the uncertainty that they present you with, you sort of have to fix in your own mind, right? You have to fix in your own mind what you accept as real, as what you're going, not just what you accept as real, but what you are going to accept. And if you don't accept it, you can sort of start over. You've got that ability to reawaken as a hunter that you get on the hunter's mark, and you go into a life and death struggle, you come out the other side because you're a hunter and you can rally back that health, right? It's a very interesting idea, getting at what's going on with being a hunter and tying that into the life or death struggles and the utilitarian nature of the hunt and what that's doing to people emotionally. And it's all beautifully wrapped together, I think. I mean, let me know what you think about all this, but I think it works wonderfully. And all right, so having talked about all of that, and I mean, I feel like I could probably keep going, especially since I've just talked about a blood gem. I could bring up additional things about them, but I think I'm going to wait a little bit. That was quite a lot of me just talking, right? It was had a little bit of a session of like lectures in an old Yarnum chapel, right? It seems a little bit excessive. Like, what was that? 15 minutes at the start of the episode where I wasn't even doing anything. I was just reading a few item descriptions. Yeah, that uh-oh. Interesting. That first enemy attack interrupted me, which meant that I was forced to, even though I hit the sort of bigger hit and then hit for R2 and then followed it up with R1, I didn't get the R1 I was expecting. I got a different one. Uh-oh. All right. Got to be careful with this machine gunner out here. But there are fewer beasts around. So now I'm going to do a circle before running back here into the chapel. Oh, and it looks like I have a gem that looks like it is allowing me to probably very slowly, regain HP over time. Just with that little symbol, that little like chest X-ray up symbol in the top left there is indicating that I'm slowly healing. So that's cool. It's another reason I can come out alive at the end of a life or death struggle. Regeneration is not particularly strong in Bloodborne, but, you know, it's better than nothing. Some of it is better than nothing, anyway. Particularly when you're talking about small amounts of HP because of the nature of healing. Like, if you don't want to waste a blood vial, and you don't want to burn the blood bullets, you can sit here and let the HP recovery top you off and not waste your other resources. So, that's handy. Alright, now, I'm going to pick this up here. There we are. Alright. Dodge the bullets as I continue to press forward. Here we go. And let's go in this other chapel. Sure are a lot of chapels in Old Yarnum. And Yarnum in general, really. And hello, enemy. I see you up there. This is a complete ambush. You're supposed to go ahead and engage with these things. And then this thing drops down behind you. But, wait a minute. I said this thing drops down behind you. There we go. But I'm aware of it, and so I can turn the tables. I can do a surprise for the surprise. Haha! Yeah. And giving me blood vials, that's good. I can only hold so many of those. I feel like I'm lower down in the number that I can hold than I should be. So, got to build that stock back up. I thought that one strike would be enough to finish that beast, but apparently not. Actually, there's good reason for that gameplay, Matt. This is something that will come up again later in the episode, but the shrieks you hear from some of the beasts in this area are tied to buffs given to enemies in the vicinity, represented by glowing red eyes. The fun thing about what just happened, though, is you can actually see one of those buffs taking effect. Notice how I hit the enemy just as the nearby beast patient screams. And shortly thereafter, its HP bar jumps as the boost kicks in. I caught that in editing and thought it was cool enough to highlight. Of course, Gameplay Matt's big takeaway was that it wasn't enough to save either one of those beasts, so let's go back to him gloating now. That's okay. We'll get the job done. There we go. Even more blood vials. Eventually we'll get to areas where enemies stop dropping blood vials, and those will be considerably more difficult to deal with. And I'm going to backtrack here a little bit, because if I just go down the stairway there, I'm going to get rushed by a huge, like, ambush of enemies, and I really don't want that to happen. I would really prefer to avoid that scenario. And if I go up this ladder, this actually leads to where Dura is with his machine gun, And if I go up there now, I've read conflicting reports on this, but there is a chance that if I go up that ladder now, I will never be able to do the sort of second half of the interactions that I want to do with Yura. So I'm going to wait on it. I'm going to hold off, and we're not going to go spend time with Yura up there just yet. We're going to come over here instead. And you can hear these wails. Maybe I'll be quiet so they come through a little bit more clearly. You can hear the wails, and you can see, sort of, the beasts down there, and they seem to be, like, waving their arms, almost in supplication. And it's towards this thing that is suspended in the center of the room. Only it's a little difficult to see like it is right now. So let's maybe light things up a bit. If we if we take this humble little barrel and we drop it down. Oh, look at that. Look at that. We just killed a number of beasts who were waiting in supplication, showing their reverence for the central figure. And yeah, they are, well, not all of them, but most of them, many of them, are now no more. It's going to make my life easier. And I think there's an item on one of these places where I can drop down. Oh, and I can just come out this way from the regular part of the chapel, it looks like. Oh well, I'm going to go for the item. Uh-oh. Does it matter which side I drop down on? I can't tell. There we go, found the item. There we are. Some more cold blood items. And yes, I hear you all down there making a ruckus. I'll be with you shortly. Here I am. Alright, let's get this hunter axe out and ready to go. And yeah, hunter time. Uh-huh. The downside of the hunter axe is it can sort of become about how many times do you spam the giant wind-up attack because it's so effective. But that's okay. So the screaming, incidentally, appears to generate a sort of buff to the monsters. I'm not exactly caught up on the specifics of it, but it sort of makes the monsters' eyes glow. Calling them monsters, I guess it's a generic enough term. And here we can get a better look, albeit on fire, of the thing that the beasts were sort of supplicating themselves to. Looks to be a giant flayed creature. I think another more visual example of the game putting things in front of you lacking context and then giving you context for them later. But that sight will mean more. I mean, if you've already played the game, you already know. But if you're following along with this playthrough for the first time, that sight will mean more later on. Okay. Yeah, missed the grab. Thank you. No more screams. And I think that's all the beasts I have to worry about in here. I managed to turn the tables. I got to ambush the ambushers. If you just come down this stairway, just regular, ordinary old hunter way, like a normal person, boy, they all come at you in droves, and it's very easy to die. Did I kill the one that was already over here? Yes, I did. What is this? More antidotes? Yeah, more antidotes. Go figure. Okay, and I don't have to go back to that other sort of open doorway because it was already open. Or already open. I already saw it from the other side based off of where I fell from above. This is something that not just Bloodborne, but the Soulsborne games in general make good use of, is verticality. And you can see it very strong. Like, this is a relatively small space, right? It's just this one building. But we were able to go up the ladder and drop down onto the main entryway, and then from the main entryway we could drop down there. There's the even above. If we didn't drop down into the main entryway, we could stay up in the rafters and drop down that flask that caught all this on fire. And actually, now that I'm talking about all this verticality, I'm remembering there's an item that I would like to pick up way up top on the ceiling. So we are going to end up going back in a large circle here. We are going to make use of the ladder one more time. And it allows this sort of verticality allows some really cool shortcuts to take place within areas and sometimes between areas. I think Dark Souls tends to use the connections a little bit more between areas, so you can go from one place to another in a little bit more interesting fashion. Bloodborne, you sort of have, like, there's a main path, and then there tends to be, like, two branching paths. Like, if you look at the route that you end up taking through the game, I'll try and point that out a little bit more as it becomes easier to see, because I don't think it's very clear right now. But eventually it'll be easier to see what I mean, and I think I want to point it out again when we get there, when we get to that point. I think that'll be a good way to do that. But the way that the, like, progress through the game ends up going is you get these sort of, you go forward on the main line, you get a couple branches, then you go forward on the main line again, then you get a couple branches, and then you go forward on the main line again, and that's the game. Whereas Dark Souls is a little bit more interconnected between areas. But to sort of offset that, Bloodborne has a lot of interconnections within the same area. So we have this church in Old Yarnum where we've just been up and down all over it and making use of these rafters in multiple different ways. And here comes yet another way very shortly. There's more than one item up here. There was only one item I remembered. It's over there. But clearly, there's actually quite a lot up here. All right, now, this is a moment when things might get a little boring. I mean, they're going to be exciting very quickly. And then, you know what I'll do? I'll cut it out if it gets boring. So I'll save all the best parts for you. But jumping in Bloodborne is no mean feat. And I need to jump in order to get that item. So here we go. We're going to see if I can make this work. I need more of a running start, I think. Get running at this point, and then... No! Ah, I just missed. Okay. Well, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to sort of blur forward in editing, and the next time I see you, I'll be attempting to jump once again. Okay, here we are again. We're going to take jump number 2. Come on. Come on. No! I didn't jump at all! Oh, no. Look at all the health I lost. Oh, I've been trying to avoid using blood vials, but I'm going to have to heal that. All right, I'm going to cut forward again, and I will see you again soon for attempt number 3. Okay, listen. Those first 2 attempts were all about calibration, right? I jumped off at an angle. I jumped too late. This time, we're going to nail it. Here we go. First try. Come on, let's go. No! Not again! How many times am I going to have to do this? All right, you know, whoop, get out of the way, grass. You know the drill by now. I'll see you again soon. Right, all those previous attempts were clearly never going to work, doomed to failure, but this time I figured it out. I've got it. We've got the trick. It's gonna happen. Here we go. Here we go. No! I didn't even get to jump. Why do I do this to myself? Okay, one more cut. Listen, it was wrong of me to dismiss my previous attempts. I'm a hunter. I gain things from the dead. I learn from past experience. I need to accept that those mistakes happened and use them to make myself stronger. Here we go. Ah, I missed it again! Ah, I just missed it. Okay. At this point, I'm just going to cut forward to whenever I make this jump. There it is! All right! That item does, like, nothing for us. But it is nice to have, and it shows off how terrible the platforming is in Bloodborne. I think I lost more blood vials to the to the height, to the constantly falling that I did from the enemies. Wild. All right, well, I'll be able to get those back. You know, I mean, I can do some farming. It won't be a problem. Now, let's see. I think there's a way we can reduce the fall damage even from this height a little bit. But I don't remember what it is. Do I, like, land on that arch or something? Something tells me this isn't going to work, but I'll give it a shot. Ooh. No. Didn't exactly land on the arch, but I am on the... What is this? Ledge? I'm just some sort of ledge. I'm on the ledge here. I doubt that reduced the damage all that much, but alright. Yeah, and I'm not going to heal that up. I've got my handy-dandy regenerating HP blood gem going on. And the ritual blood, of course. So, that's an important item. And we are about to open up one of those shortcuts that I was talking about, where, once again, we'll see the verticality coming into play. As I said before, it's sort of a standard feature in Bloodborne and the Soulsborne games in general. Oh, and good thing they gave me all those blood vials. They knew. They knew I'd be falling a lot. And they just said, you know what, we're gonna refill your blood vials for you right there. That particular corpse looked like it may have also fallen from a great height. That person understands my pain. Alright, but we made it. Climb back up. And that, right there, a little precarious when I open it, but still, very important shortcut. Allows us to come right back up here. And having done that, and looking at the clock, I think it's about time we call it for this particular episode. But I'm thinking maybe we go back to the dream first and work some of those blood gems into our weapon. And in order to go back to the dream... Okay, I don't have them on here yet. Let's see, how do I use add? All right, I'm looking for, here they are, Bold Hunter's Marks. And, all right, first of all, let's get them on this little handy-dandy shortcut hotbar thing. But then, I actually would like to read them, because I think they're interesting. We haven't read them yet. Oops, there we go. This is the screen I want. So, this is a dangling upside-down rune carved into the back of a hunter's brain. And when I say dangling upside down, I think it's important to specify that it's like strung upside down. That final, like, sakasa tsuru, that tsuru at the end there, tsuru on its own, is like strung up. Like, I imagine like a cartoon trap where someone steps into a circle of rope and it snaps around their leg and throws them up into a tree, right? They're dangling upside down like from a cartoon trap. I don't think that's what the Bloodborne creators had in mind when they wrote that, but that's the image that comes to mind. And so let's see. Based upon this, it's like, I don't know what the exact right word is. It's like a talisman. So at the very end of the second line there, we have like the word for, it can mean curse, but it can also mean like a charm. And then fu, right? Maybe charm in and of itself is just the right word for that particular bit of vocab. I'll find, when I'm editing this, I'll find an appropriate dictionary definition and throw it up on screen. I'm just going to go with charm. It is a charm that allows for a more clearly formed vision, right? So I think the official, I think I said it before, the official translation for this item is Bold Hunter's Marks. And we're seeing in the description, we're also seeing in the name, right? If we look at Karyudo no Tashikana Shirushi. So it's not bold in the sense that it's like brave. I don't think anyone would have taken it that way. It's bold in the sense that it's clearer. It's more certain, right? So like certain hunter's mark would be a little bit more of a literal translation there. Not very good, but still. I really like Bold Hunter's Mark. I think it effectively conveys the point. But I do want to sort of dwell on that particular aspect of it, because what it does, the way it functions, is you use this as a basis to more clearly envision the rune that's already in the back of your mind, the Hunter's Mark, and that produces a slightly different effect, as we see from the continuing lines here. As a result of this, you are able to, a hunter, sorry, important note there, the subject is a hunter or hunters, is able to reawaken without abandoning the blood echoes. So a clearer vision, right? That idea that I was talking about before, where a hunter can sort of determine, oh, I'm in a bad situation, I want to sort of reject this reality and replace it with my own, right? Like, this is not my vision for how things are, so I'm going to focus on this rune and reawaken. It is, in this case, when you more clearly envision it, right? In this case, in the case that I was describing before, if you just use the Hunter's Mark with no way of visualizing it, then you give something up. You're unable to take the blood echoes with you when you reawaken. But when you use this like tool to more clearly envision the Hunter's Mark that is in your mind, you can awaken without losing what you would otherwise lose, what you would otherwise gain behind. It's like you have a clearer picture of yourself that you're able to hold on to and reimpose that more efficiently upon reality. I don't know, maybe not. Maybe it doesn't work that way at all. Maybe it's I mean, this is the mystery of Bloodborne and how exactly it works. But we're going to see more indications that hunters are sort of associated with having a strong will, and so I think that's one potential way that you could make sense of it. And then, of course, the final line, a most useful skill indeed, sort of. I think the official translation made that come across as sort of questioning. Something about like it almost being too good to be true. And I think there is a little bit of that sense in the Japanese of sort of laying it on a little bit thick, but it's not quite as questioning as the official translation, which is interesting because I think, like I said before, that whole like what is real, what is not real, like Bloodborne is definitely exploring that. Are you mad or are you insightful? How much of your madness is important, this, that, the other thing, right? It's one of those things that we see over and over again in Bloodborne. But we also see it here on the Hunter's Mark, which, interesting idea, that this in and of itself maybe might not do anything, but it allows us to more clearly envision the Hunter rune. I'm not entirely sure what that means, but that's definitely interesting and significant. So this is what we're going to use to reawaken. I will see you back in the dream. Okay, important note, actually. You might think that using that brought me back to the dream if you're just watching this video. That's not how it works. I cut out an intermediate step where reawakening reawakens me by the lamppost. So I reawaken in whatever world the world of Yharnam is, and then I go from there into the Hunter's Dream. If that item just warped you straight back to the Hunter's Dream, it may or may not have a different implication for the world. That sort of depends on your interpretation, but it is worth noting that it happens that way. So, anyway, I came back here because, first of all, I have a ton of blood echoes, and then I also would like to get my weapon more efficiently set up, and then might as well repair these weapons, because I think before I didn't quite have the blood echoes to repair them the way I would have liked. But before we put blood gems into our weapon, let's go ahead and do something that's not just this special blood gem. Let's do some other types of blood gems. And then we'll conclude the episode. There's a little bit of a gameplay sandwich going on here now that I think about it. I didn't really plan this, but this is how it's happened. We're doing sort of lore time at the beginning and end, and in the middle we made a little bit of progress. Let me know what you think about that structure. I don't know if maybe we can do that on purpose going forward. I don't know. Anyway, the first line of this should sound familiar from the other blood gem that I was reading. In fact, all of them, looks like they all start with that same first line, where it is a blood gem which strengthens weapons as well as adds various properties to them. And let's see. Okay, Gameplay Matt, I've let you slowly piece things together so far, but from this point on you start to get intolerable, so I'm stepping in while editing to help. Here's a quick literal translation. A blood gem that strengthens weapons and confers various characteristics. It is a special thing even among the bloodstones produced from cold blood. Blood gems are wrenched into weapons by means of a workshop tool, but there is a need for the shapes to match. Blood gems placed in the category of radial type tend to possess effects related to physical attack. And with that out of the way, here are a few things that I think are worth noting. First, there's the way these gems are said to confer characteristics, or in the official translation, add properties. The Japanese term here could also be used to mean something like nature or disposition, which I think ties in with the idea I've mentioned before about these weapons sort of being analogous to living things. That's not the last we'll see of this idea either, but for now I want to move on to the next line where we find blood gems being compared to blood stones. Both of these things are formed from cold blood, which, as we know, literally refers to the blood of the dead, and is also the substance that contains blood echoes. Oh, and I think I put this on screen in the form of a note earlier, but there's even a potential pun going on with the verb here, because the term shojiru involves using a kanji that can refer both to the concept of life and the concept of birth. Maybe generated is the term that shows the double meaning at its most obvious, though of course in terms of literal information, it's important to remember that we're technically speaking of things produced from cold blood. Also, while we're on the subject of verbs, I just wanted to call attention to how the translators speak of kneading these gems into weapons. Literally, the Japanese uses a term that means twist or wrench, but given the lifelike connotations I've been pointing out, I find the idea of kneading these gems in place a thematically appropriate way of visualizing the action. To be fair, this choice does have at least one downside, which I'll get to later, but I admire the way the translators reached for a verb that's more organic than mechanical. Finally, from a purely translation-related perspective, I want to point out that the term radial appears to have been used to get at the idea of having parts arranged like rays. See how in the image you can basically make out what almost look like arrows pointing out in various directions from the center or nucleus of the gem? That's the shape implied by the term radial. This was something I found much easier to understand when I looked at the Japanese compared to when I read the English, even though the official term is perfectly accurate. The reason for that is simple. I've long thought of a radial shape essentially being synonymous with a circular one, though it turns out I was wrong about that. Anyway, as you can see, the only real difference in the descriptions between these gems comes from the final portions that are all about their shapes, so let me quickly give you some literal versions of those now. Blood gems placed in the category of circular type are things particularly for strengthening guns. Blood gems placed in the category of triangular type tend to possess effects related to ability scaling, additional effects, and so on. Obviously, that's mostly mechanical information, but it is worth noting that different types of blood gems strengthen weapons in different ways. Okay, transition us to our next topic, Gameplay Matt. But remember how I was talking about that second line there, right? It's a special sort of bloodstone that's born in cold blood. Well, we haven't really talked about bloodstones. So, where are they? Oh, they're right here. Perfect, thanks. Now I'll take over with my better edited perspective again. Here's a literal take on the bloodstone shard's description. Fragment of a solid thing produced from cold blood. A certain substance that is melted in blood solidifies after death, and the things that do not crystallize are called bloodstones. The workshop strengthens weapons by carving these bloodstones into them. So, if you line this up with the blood gem descriptions, you can see how this process works. There's some mysterious substance melted in blood, and after a creature dies, it can harden into one of two structures. It either crystallizes into a blood gem, or it simply hardens into a bloodstone. Each of these products can then be used to power up our weapons in different ways. Bloodstones are carved or engraved into weapons so as to strengthen them, whereas blood gems are kneaded into place so as to provide additional, if sometimes similar, benefits. And having clarified that, I think it's time we turn to the workshop tool that makes blood gem work possible. One of the workshop tools that was lost from the hunter's dream. The hunter who recovers this will become able to strengthen weapons by wrenching blood gems into them. Blood gem strengthening also causes various characteristics of a weapon to change. That is just like how blood itself prescribes a living being. Okay, there's a lot to take note of here, so let's start at the top of the description and work our way down. First, there's something I'm only just noticing in this playthrough, which is that the opening line specifies that this is a workshop tool lost from the hunter's dream. I'm not really sure how significant this is, but it does stand out from the other hunter tools we've found, such as the Molotov cocktails, which spell out that they've been a tool of the workshop from times of old, but don't mention the dream at all. Perhaps there's a distinction to be made between workshop tools in general and workshop tools of the dream. Or perhaps my focus on this aspect of the lore has me seeing things. Thankfully, the second thing I want to point out is more clear-cut. Remember how I said earlier that I like the use of the verb knead rather than twist for working blood gems into our weapons? Well, the counter-argument to that word choice can be found in the image of this tool, which is clearly operated by twisting the handles so that a gem can be pressed into place. Now, I'm pretty sure the translators didn't have access to visuals when they were working on the English wording, so I don't hold this against them. But as much as I admire the organic sound of need as opposed to twist, I can't deny that the official term doesn't fit the implied action of operating this tool. Of course, the theming that probably inspired the more organic word choice can also be found in the final 2 lines of this description. Here again, we see the double meaning of the term seishitsu, which can refer either to a person's nature or to a property of a thing. Only this time, it's followed up by a general statement about blood defining an organism. That second verb, by the way, is kitei suru, which may be best thought of as meaning to set the standards for something. Now, I'm not sure how much we should trust the statement that it's blood that sets the standards for living beings in the world of Bloodborne, but I do think it establishes a parallel between organic life and these trick weapons. Right, now I can let Gameplay Matt summarize the main point of all this. The main point that I want to sort of get at is the way that blood works in Bloodborne. When I was first playing this game, I was like, why is this game called Bloodborne? Well, you don't really have to think super hard about it after reading all these descriptions, right? We're talking about things that are literally born, they are carried by blood. We have blood echoes, right? So we know that the echoing will of those who have perished, those who have come before, inheres in blood, and that's what makes cold blood. And at the same time, there's a substance in blood that hardens after death. So it's like this separation of all these things separation out of all these things that are in blood normally, right? We have the will, we have the whatever the substances are that harden to form blood stones that we can use to strengthen our weapons. We have the gems that crystallize, sort of like the blood stones, but in a different structure. And those can be used in a different way to strengthen our weapons. Our weapons, by the way, the sort of metaphor of them being like trick weapons, transformable, the way that they sort of stand in for organisms, right, as blood strengthens an organism, or defines an organism, or whatever it was I was saying before. These weapons, we're seeing yet another parallel to how they could be seen as living things. And I don't think necessarily we're supposed to understand them as like sentient beings or anything like that. I think they're just analogous to living beings defined by the things that are in blood, right? Blood born. It's all there. Bloodstones, blood gems, blood echoes, the things we use to strengthen ourselves and the things we use to strengthen our weapons. It all comes from blood. So, I think that's the end of our little lore sandwich we had going out there. Let me know what you think about that particular idea. And I am going to make sure my blood gems are what I want them to be here. Ooh. Oh, okay, this would be better, but I should have an additional slot to put it into. So it looks like we lucked out with the one that we were using anyway, because it's not only is it physically a great boost to our setup here, but it's also giving us that 0.5 continual HP recovery. It's really not much HP recovery, but it's there. And based off of the results that we just saw on that other screen, yeah, this continues to be our best option. This is increasing our attack power physically by 2.7%, and it is adding to our regain by 1.8%. Boy, they make such a big deal about how this like strengthens rallying, the essential hunter skill that lets you survive this life or death struggle. It adds 1.8%. I guess it's better than nothing. Like I was saying before. Okay, I've enhanced my weapons. Let's enhance my quote-unquote flesh. Quoting a line a long time ago from Gehrman.
Welcome home. What is it? Very
all right.
Let me...
Now, I have looked up in between episodes. I'm eventually going to want to get, if I want to wield most weapons in this game, strength is eventually going to have to go to 20. Skill needs to get to 14. And of course, this is an arcane playthrough, so we're going to want to be boosting our arcane throughout. It's a little bit early to want to go straight arcane, I think. So what I think I'm going to do is get my skill to 14, because that's achievable right now, and then grab one more level in my quote-unquote primary stat. You wouldn't believe it the way I'm making this character, but still, technical primary stat here of arcane. Get that up to 17. And I think that's a good way to level up for now. We don't have to touch skill again. I might end up leveling Blood Tinge to like 10 or 12 or something like that, because I think there's another weapon we'll get very much later on that needs it to be higher, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. So I think that is... Oops, didn't mean to do that. Get me out of here. Okay. Oop, get me... All right, good. Once again, wasn't elegant, but I got the job done. All right. I think I'm going to call an end to my hunt for the evening. And thank you all very much for watching, by the way. In the meantime, I wish you all good hunting.